Hello and welcome to
Hey, we like your pod.
And we're going to tell you why. Hi, it's Dawn, and I'm joined, as always, by my trusted partner, Matt Pickett, and tonight, our very special guest. So glad to meet you, the Paul Noonan.
Oh, you're doing so well, Dawn.
It's like
so
everybody who's ever cold called me on the phone.
Hey, I'm still going to blame the cough medicine that I've been on for 3 weeks now. So.
Enough. Good excuse, definitely.
Yep. Good. Yeah, I'm seriously, my brain is fried. Paul, it is so nice to meet you. How are you doing? What's new? What's up with you this week?
Doing well. It's been a busy week of work and football, and I also do Brewer stuff, and the Brewers just can't stop doing stuff. So also have to cover them too. But, getting ready for Thanksgiving. We're doing a little bit of traveling for that. And I've got kids at the tail end of sports. So running them around and about to get a break from that. So
it'll be good to not be driving them and dealing with the schedules, I bet, right?
Yes, exactly. Correct. Very nice to have that happen.
Yeah,
sports is overwhelming these days. Kids do too many of them.
Yeah. I'm lucky my kids do arts stuff instead. They're actually doing art in the background orally. They're clanking around at their station. Kids, go to bed. It's bedtime for you. Yeah, between my older kid playing trumpet and my younger kid doing ballet, it's good stuff. But
Nice.
it's not as much time commitment as sports, unfortunately. So
very true. We got one who does chess club, so we're
Nice.
simpatico there.
Excuse me. I love ballet. What does your kid do?
Mine? So we've got a travel soccer player, my daughter. And,
soccer. Okay.
Yeah, and then we have cross country and chess.
Chess club. That's the part I didn't hear. Okay. Oh, I love that. I love chess. Chess club is great at that age. I mean,
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both play piano too, so we have music going on.
Nice.
Yeah. How many kids do you have, Paul?
I have two.
Two.
They're 8 and 10, and they do kind of the same stuff. But my son is actually, I think, taken to piano pretty well, so he actually digs piano lessons quite a bit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Not a given for kids by any stretch. I mean, my wife got a degree in piano performance in undergrad, but it was like many years of struggle for her parents to get her to practice all the time. She just happened to come through on the other side of it. But yeah, it was
Wow.
Doesn't happen for everybody. That's for sure.
That's interesting. We all had piano lessons. We played the piano, had a piano. It was a lot of music in my world. So you two, Paul and Matt, your kids are kind of in the same-ish age group, right?
7 and 11 for mine. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Ballpark.
That's really cool. And is ballet new for your daughter?
No, that kid has been doing it for 2.5 years. I want to say 2.5 years of ballet.
Nice.
Yeah,
we have a dance studio across the street. We had a couple of them, but there's one now that's right across the street. And I get to watch the kids. They were out there tonight doing their ballet and dance and stuff. Oh my gosh, I love it. I need to get back into it. Wow. So how are you both doing with, football? Are you interested in tonight's game? I'm bummed about Andrews, and now it looks like Burrow. Both have some major injuries. That's a bummer. I like both of those players.
I like this. I actually like both of these teams quite a bit. The Bengals are always an interesting one. They go counter to a lot of NFL trends, but I actually really like the Ravens quite a bit. They have one of the few smartest front offices. They always have the most draft picks every year. They trade down more than any other team. They build their team through just out drafting everybody in sheer quantity. And I know from just doing what I do, they look for a lot of the same things in especially quarterbacks that I tend to look for. So I always kind of root for them to succeed too.
Yeah. They are a good team. They're fun to watch.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Don. They're a very fun to watch team. And, you know, of course, you're saying, like, are we watching this game, care about it? It's the Bengals. It's my second team, Don. Yeah, very interested in this game. You know, of
Yes.
course, it's,
Yes.
two AFC North teams together. So, no, this has been a pretty interesting game so far. I mean, it might not be anymore with Joe Burrow out, of course, but Paul's just looking at his spreadsheets about their backup.
Jacob Browning, Washington
Browning.
alum.
There it is.
Not a bad college quarterback. I'm just going purely off numbers, but pretty accurate. It was in his junior year about 14% better than the average quarterback was, which makes him in the draftable range. The one thing with guys like that who you've never heard of and who probably went, I actually don't know when he was drafted. I should look that up. Usually they have arm strength problems. That's usually what bites you. So I haven't seen him throw a pass yet because I'm doing this, but we'll see. If he's got a little gun there, he might have something.
They might pull through perhaps in this game.
They might.
Good for him. That would be good for him. Well, my second team, or my home away from home team, is the Chargers, and they're playing the Packers this week. So the 1 and 2, I probably won't even get to see it because I can't see the Chargers and I can't see the Packers most of the time. So who knows if I'll be able to see this coming game or not. I can replay it, but I can't see it live unless I get my YouTube TV back, which I never watch. I only used for football, so kind of I'm fine with it. I still love listening to Larry and Wayne on the radio, and the more I do it, the less I even feel like I need to watch the game. It's just so good. It's so nostalgic. It just feels nostalgic to me, and it's just good. So yeah. So
a lot of times on Sundays, if I have to be, up and moving around doing stuff with kids, or, just moving the laundry, stuff like that, I'll just, have it on my phone in my pocket, walking around, listening to them. Works out pretty well, especially because, the weeks when it's not on here. I mean, of course, Dawn, I would never advocate for a person to use any streaming sites of questionable legality.
Of course.
I would never do such a thing, but I have heard of some, Dawn. So if you want me to give you a website for one later, I could. Not that I've ever used it, obviously, but
yeah,
I might be tempted.
Yeah, I don't do cable here, but I have a good set of bunny ears, and that does well for me most days. So also a good investment.
In Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Packers are so I stream pretty much everything too, and I've done that for a long time. And the Packers are usually on TV in Chicago. It's usually part of the the broadcast map. So that's just when they're blacked out on streaming, and so that's when I get the rabbit ears out and pop those up. And that works well.
Yeah, I love it. I loved being back in Wisconsin and seeing them and seeing all the kind of local coverage that you get when you're there. I don't see obviously any of that here. I just watch all the press conferences and watch Mike and Wes's programs and stuff. So well, cool. Well, we would love to have our audience get to know you a little bit better, Paul. For those of you who don't, we're going to see if we can pull out some little tidbits that others might know about that don't know about you, and maybe we don't too. So what we'd like to do, if you're familiar with our show, is we like to start out with your Twitto. And so your Twitto reads Badger Noonan at Badger Noonan. And host of Reporting is Eligible, which we love, and Milwaukee's Tailgate Podcast, which I have questions about. Okay. Numbers Guy at Acme Packing Company. Views are my own. Chicago, Illinois. That's probably anywhere you were watching from. And acmepackingcompany.com. So we're going to start at the beginning. Okay. So tell us about, well, wait a minute. Before we do that, before we even talk about your resume here, your Twitto, and to explain, maybe you could explain how you could be living in Chicago, Bears country, and be a Packers fan. How did that all come about?
Well, as listeners to my podcast know, I famously move kind of all the time, and I'm not doing it ever again. But I have lived everywhere that has an NFC North team, if you count Milwaukee as a Packer home city, which you should, because it technically is. And so I move a lot. I've moved a lot just for jobs. And that's that's the long and short of it. I've actually lived in Chicago on 2 non-consecutive occasions. So I'm from a suburb of Milwaukee, Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Grew up there. I went to Madison for my undergraduate degree, hence my handles and all that stuff. That's why Badger Noonan is there. Like when I joined Twitter, I kind of wanted to stay pseudo kind of anonymous. That's just all gone out the door at this point. But it was a good thought when I did it. I went to Madison, did that 4 years. I went to law school at Marquette back in Milwaukee, and then my wife got into grad school down in Chicago after that at the University of Chicago. And so we moved to Chicago the first time, moved to Hyde Park on the south side of Chicago for about 2 years, where the university is, where Obama is from. And while I was there, I worked for Sears Holdings Corporation back when Sears was a thing that existed. RIP to that, which is way out in the suburbs, and worked there for quite a long time. Sears was going bankrupt for pretty much the last 25 years or so of its existence, and so I got a better opportunity elsewhere, and ended up moving to Detroit for about 3 years. Worked for General Motors, and then I that one's a long story. I'll get into some other time, but I got another offer I couldn't refuse. Well, actually, COVID intervened. I forgot about that. And my wife's from Minnesota, from the suburbs of the Twin Cities, and we actually really like it there. We had a lot of friends there, and so when COVID popped up and you could kind of live wherever you wanted to live, we moved there, close to all of our friends who lived there, and kind of thought we'd be there forever, honestly. So lived in Minnesota then, and I got basically an offer I couldn't refuse. And we did get to stay there for a while during COVID, but once it started to calm down, they did want people back in the office. And I was like, well, if you'll pay for it, all right. And they were like, okay, fine. Like, we like Chicago well enough, so we went back, and that's where I am now. So I made the rounds through all of those places, and I live in the western suburbs of Chicago now. And like I said, I'm never ever moving again. My 10-year-old son has had 8 houses, and that's too many.
That is a lot, no doubt. Well, as I've mentioned before in the show, and you might know this, Paul, I lived in Chicago for 6 years, and so I love talking Chicago stuff. Mentioned on a recent episode about Do Right Donuts, which you told us that you are well familiar with, because you said you work in the Sears Tower. I want to mention, I love that you said that you work in the Sears Tower, not the Willis Tower, anything else. It will always be the Sears Tower. It'll always be Twitter, not X. But anyhow, I sound like a huge old person saying all that. But suffice to say, I was happy to see that you're familiar with the Do Right Donuts, man. That is good stuff.
They're excellent. They're fantastic. A lot of people like Stan's here. That's ridiculous. Do Right is just infinitely better.
Okay, explain the Do Right thing to me, because went right over my head. And I grew up in Racine, Wisconsin, very close to Chicago, but I don't remember those donuts.
I think it's really just about quality with them. They're just all super well made, good balance, good quality ingredients on everything. And every single type they make is really good. There's not really a dud amongst them. So there's a line out the door every day at the Sears Tower Do Right. And they also make a really good chicken sandwich for lunch. So they managed to keep open and profitable all day, which is good to see. But there's nothing really super special about them in terms of piling a bunch of junk on their donut like some places do. They're not novelty donuts. They're really just really well made, classic flavored donuts, and not anything more special than that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Just like the kind of donut you would get at a local mom and pop place, but really, really good version of it. Like the form of that particular kind of donut. The one that I always rave about is the glazed buttermilk old fashioned, which just
wow.
Just think about it, how it's crunchy on the outside, soft in the middle, not too sweet. It's perfect.
The chocolate version of that's really good too, but pretty much everything they make is good too.
Didn't we talk about donuts on our last show?
Yeah, you did.
That was
like a half hour. Yeah, it came up
half hour
with Jasmine. So
I know that was crazy with Jasmine. Okay, so is Do Right a family-owned business? Is it one shop, or
honestly, I have no idea. I don't think it's one. I think they have a couple. I just know the one I have by me.
It's not like a million, or
I think it started, so not to get too far off the track of the donuts like we did last week, but I think it started kind of as a side business of one of the Italian restaurants. And I could be wrong about this. This is I'm maybe 40% sure about this. So it was around the corner from this place, down in the Loop. and they were popular, and so they started expanding. I know they have actually more locations every time I look them up to grab a screen grab of one of their donuts to send it to people when I'm talking about it. So it seems like they're ever expanding.
I like it. I like it. And I forgot I was supposed to post some pictures of donuts from my friend's shop here in Carlsbad, the gourmet donuts. I will do that. I will do that. I will do. I have an excuse. I have a really good excuse, and I have an excuse. This is my same excuse for not having superlatives tonight, because not only have I kind of relapsed, but remember the trial I was so excited about, and then we got a guilty verdict. Well, the mother of the guy who got the guilty verdict was arrested in the airport trying to flee the country. So now we're going to have another trial a little sooner than we thought. We were expecting her to be arrested at some point. We were hoping, because she was probably the one who put this whole murder together and everything. But so it was just a lot of activity, and I made extra videos and stuff for YouTube. And hey to Carla, if you're still there. It will always be Twitter to Carla. Now she wants donuts. Carla, what donut shop is your favorite here? Carla lives 10 minutes away from me, so and she helped. And Carla, it's Noonan. Yes. Hey, Aaron, it's nice to see you. Carla is. We met through the whole. Excuse me, I'm so sorry about this cough, you guys. We met through the that trial. We met online, and then. In fact, I met a whole bunch of other locals last night on another live stream. So it's really great. Carla went live with me once or a couple times, and she's going to go live with me here on this channel on Saturday regarding all of them. Okay, well, Carla, I'm going to have to take you to the one I'm talking about, and I forget their name already, but I'm going to post some pictures on Twitter. I promised last week, I forgot. I might even do a video. Okay, so... And hello from the Netherlands. I love it. Yes, the Adelsons is a gift that keeps on giving. And we're talking NFL tonight here on This Is My Football podcast with Matt called Hey, We Like Your Pod. And this is Paul Noonan, because what this podcast is about, for those of you who are just joining in, is, and it's good to kind of remind people what we're all about, right?
Yeah.
Once in a while.
Remind ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, ourselves. It's not about donuts.
Not about donuts. Welcome to Donut Talk.
It could be.
Hey, We Like Your Pod basically is about Matt and I we consume a lot of content, football, Packers content, of course, me, true crime also, or trials, I should say, not really true crime, but I guess that's what trials are. So we like to highlight the best of, the worst of, and everything in between. And it's usually the best of every
I've never talked about the worst of on this.
Yeah, we never do that. Very rarely.
I was surprised to see it as an option there.
Yeah.
It's a superlative, so technically. But we like to call out other content creators. That's what we do. We like to do that. And Paul's going to talk to us about what he does. So Paul, so you were born and raised in Wisconsin. So basically being a Packers fan is a requirement, right? Yep. What was your family? Was your dad and mom, your whole family into the Packers? Yeah.
My whole family very much into the Packers, going back quite a long way. My grandparents as well went to games consistently. My extended family are all huge fans too. They have big Packer parties, less so than they used to, but still do. My first few games I went to were actually County Stadium back when the Packers did actually play there. I went to probably 4 or 5 games there. And then my extended family somehow weaseled their way into season tickets that we all split up and would have a draft for. And so I'd go once or twice a year for a long time.
That's perfect.
Yeah. I usually get the cold games because I'll do that. I can't do it anymore. I'm old now. Cold hurts now, but,
cold. I thought you meant the Colts.
Oh, no.
Cold game.
I actually don't think I've ever seen the Colts play in person now that I think of it.
Well, I just assumed they were all cold except for like maybe September when I went. No, a little bit. Excuse me, October. This year was warm. Yeah.
My family are all huge Packer fans and always have been. And
I love
like
it.
to the extent, things get moved for Packer games. Holidays
Mhm.
get moved for Packer games.
Mhm.
When there's a birthday, it pauses for Packer games, things like that. So yeah.
That's definitely my reality growing up too, is that everything on my dad's side, because they're all big Packers fans, was like, it was scheduled around the games for sure.
Yep.
So and now these days when I'm watching a game, I'm always texting with my dad the whole time. So Paul, are there people who you're like in contact with during games?
During games, I am usually on Twitter, and we usually do at Acme Packing Company like a little halftime Twitter Spaces show. So lately, since I've been back in Chicago, I am either at a youth sport listening on the radio to like we discussed earlier, or I'm around here actually like on the Acme Packing Company Slack channel and on Twitter commenting game real time, or I'm going. one of those. Family though, like I don't text with too much. They'll hit me up once in a while for something, but not too much. Everybody kind of does their own thing at this point.
So you guys have a Twitter Spaces like every time at halftime or sometimes?
Yeah, I'm not always on it, but Justice and Tex, the guys who run the place, they run it every time, and I'm on it as long as I'm around. I'm on it. Yeah, from start of halftime to end of halftime. It's good. It's quality. Like Justice especially is, I feel like, outstanding in those situations in particular, on quick reacts and being able to diagnose what went wrong very, very quickly. So yeah.
I
mean, he's a joy to listen to. He's so smart, and interesting, and I love his stuff.
Yep, he's fantastic. We're lucky to have him.
Yeah.
So Carla here, who is here to support. She is a 49ers fan. Good for you, Carla.
Good time to be a 49ers
But
fan.
she says they're doing very well this year. Oops, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Arrest Wendy. Hashtag arrest Wendy. Okay. I'm a Niners fan through and through, but always tip my hat to Packers fans because sitting in beyond freezing weather is true dedication.
It is. I was at that 49ers game the last time that happened. The 49ers are the team I know the second most about because that's the tree. That's the LaFleur tree.
LaFleur tree.
And
right.
Shanahan is the best at using receivers who generate yak to make his quarterback good. And I wish we did a little more of that, honestly. But they're worth studying because nobody else operates like the 49ers. They're unique in how they run offense, especially.
Yeah.
Yep.
They've got the magic mix.
They do.
Whatever. Yeah.
A lot of it's Debo, but they're just good at that. Yep. And
Yeah.
Aaron, yes, that is where I live. I'm out west, but I'm in the Loop a lot if you're ever around.
The Loop or what?
Oh, Aaron commented I'm in the Chicago area, and
Where's the Loop?
I work in the Loop, but
you work in the Loop. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. I think my head is like clogged up today. My ears are ringing. I'm still a mess. I'm like, now I can't hear you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just a mess. Oh goodness. Okay. So yeah, I'm like mad. I usually text with my mom and my sister throughout the game, and then there's usually friends of mine who are texting me. I direct message them on Facebook, and then there are friends who are texting me, and then I'm over on Twitter as much as possible, and so it's like and then it's like, I gotta stop doing this. I need to watch the game. There's so much chatter going on. I'm like, I missed something. So Erin said she lived in Chicago for 10 years. And she just moved to Indianapolis, and she's from the western suburbs originally. I love Chicago. I love downtown Chicago, the Chicago experience. I mean, that's just the best. I love it. I love New York too. But when I go back to Racine to visit my family, I usually try to spend a couple days in Chicago. It's just love it. And the first thing I did when I was 16 years old, I turned 16. I had my driver's test all ready to go, passed and everything at like 15 and a half, so that the day I turned 16 I could drive. I got the car because it was my birthday. I could do whatever I want, right? I got the car, picked up like 4 of my girlfriends, and we drove to Chicago and went shopping and all that. And my mom's like, don't tell your dad that you're going to Chicago. Which is like, these are all afraid of the Chicago traffic. I embrace it. I love it.
Yeah, it's good. I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not really a suburban person, but it is good for the kids. And my burb is good.
Right.
And I actually live 2 blocks from the metro, so
Oh,
I can
nice.
actually get around pretty well just walk.
Yeah.
I'm also by my little downtown that my little town has. So
Yeah.
I like that a lot, but I do miss the Chicago, especially the neighborhoods. I used to
Yes.
live
Yes.
I actually the longest time I spent in any one house in Chicago, moved a lot. I lived about 2 blocks from Wrigley for about 5 years.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah,
Oh,
and that
that's
was
great.
super fun. Went to
Yeah.
a couple hundred baseball games while I was there. So.
Wow, that's great. Where did you live in Chicago, Maddie, when you
I
were
was in
there?
Andersonville, up near Edgewater.
Oh, I love Andersonville. We used to live in Lincoln Square after Wrigleyville, and
Mhm.
we'd go over to go over there all the time. Go to Simon's for Glug and go to all the Scandinavian fun over there. So
Oh man, Simon's for Glug,
Yeah.
dude. Yes, Swedish Bakery.
Swedish Bakery, I think
and
actually
Sailors.
closed, didn't it?
Yeah, it's close while we lived there. Actually, I was really bummed to see
Bummer.
that because they were a mainstay, man. They were a pillar in that neighborhood. But great place to live. The 6 years we were there, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Oh, and Carla says, I used to live in Arcadia, Wisconsin when I worked at a prior company and never even knew it existed until I went for the first time. You mean the whole state or just Arcadia?
This whole mitten-shaped state up there. It's
Well,
crazy.
I can kind of relate to that. My parents, I kind of felt like it was on a whim, but all out of the blue, after they retired, they're like, we're building a house in the foothills of the Ouachita Mountains in Arkansas. And I was like, where? Like, it's really like Arkansas. I looked on the map and I'm like, I don't think I want to go there ever, but I guess I have to now every year. So I kind of can relate. But it ended up being a beautiful state for hiking and outdoors. It's just stunning state. So, and Erin says she was in the South Loop in West Town. Right on. I used to like to go down back in the day, a million years ago when I still lived in Wisconsin, to Chinatown. I mean, apart from going downtown and partying and all that stuff, but like for food, Chinatown was fun. Like the
It's cool.
Chicago Chinatown. Yeah.
Yeah. South Loop's cool. It's actually, man, that place has turned around more than anything else since I started and ended living in Chicago. I like the South Loop a lot now.
Yeah.
I've not spent much time in West Town. I do not know much about West Town.
Yeah, I don't know if I do either. Carla, where is Arcadia? Do you guys know where Arcadia is?
I was just gonna actually pull up a Google Maps.
Yeah, let's look it up. Let's look it up. Okay, let's get to you. Look that up, and I'll ask Paul his next question. So there wasn't any one person that you can credit for you becoming a Packers fan. It was just part of your culture.
Yeah, it was really just part of the whole upbringing and whole family, all parents. Yeah.
So you're a numbers guy in general, or is it that your day job, or are you just a numbers guy for Acme Packing Company?
I am a numbers guy in general and for my day job as well. I do a lot of big database work. I do quite a bit of number crunching. And so I do get to apply what I learn from one to the other with some regularity. Yeah, my hobby is very complementary to my job, and I've actually learned a lot doing sort of experimental database work on sports statistics that I can apply back to what I do professionally as well. It's handy.
We talk a lot about how much we love databases on here. So it sounds like heaven. It sounds like heaven, honestly, living the good life. But you said experimental databases. Is that what you said there?
Well, so if I'm doing my job, I'll stick to usually what I know, but I'll figure out stuff using sports statistics. There's no downside to it. Like 2018-ish, I think I taught myself how to use R to do statistical analysis, and I'm not great at it, but I'm okay at it. And like if I have big data sets now, I can do that instead of having to build a big giant Excel that doesn't work. You can use Power BI now too. There's other things, but like it was handy to use at the time, and still is handy too.
Yeah, we like our spreadsheets here. We like our spreadsheets. I'm a creative.
Still make a lot of spreadsheets.
Yeah, and databases too. I was always, even though I was a creative, I was the person who was the organized one, and so I always had to have databases for our processes, even in design and product development and all that. So I have a great appreciation for statistical analysis and databases. I know it's wacky coming from an artist. So, and Rome. Okay, how do I pronounce this name?
Rhombohedral.
Rhombohedral. Thank you.
Rhombohedral. Yeah.
Bill Clinton. Yes, I visited his home. It was right, like the home that he was raised in, born in. It's like a heritage site. I was dating a guy at the time who didn't like Bill Clinton, so I made him stand in front of the house and took a picture of him because I'm nice like that to my boyfriends. He's like, oh my God. He's like, this here, I'm going to throw this in your face every time. And Bill Clinton, I think they were down there when Bill Clinton ran for president, actually. And so his headquarters was in town. It was in Hot Springs, a tiny little town. Hot Springs, Arkansas is interesting. It's it used to be full of bathhouses, and it used to be where like Capone and the mobsters would get away, and they had a lot of mansions there, and they still have these bathhouses. They're very beautiful. They're all little tiny mosaic tiles, all built in the 20s, and they pipe in the natural hot springs from the mineral waters there that come up from the ground, and they're super healing, and you can get massages there now, and they're just beautiful architecturally. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's not a place I never ever would have gone to if it weren't for my parents, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm glad they're not there anymore. Because it was hard to get to. It was like it's easier to get to Europe for me from here. It's just like it was always a process, and then weather and stuff. I almost killed myself a couple times getting there. So I've got some stories. So
Paul, one of the things that I love about doing podcasts with Dawn, I'm going to talk about you're not here for a second, Dawn, is that Dawn has almost as much like fascinating random information as Matub does, basically.
It's so random.
I can see some similarities there. Yeah.
I've got stories. Okay. Rhomba Hedrel says Mina Airport was a CIA cocaine import airport. Wow. There's documentaries on YouTube about it.
Wow.
I'm going there tonight.
Okay.
So they CIA imported cocaine, or was it like was it like a
Dawn, you got to watch the documentaries. Watch the documentaries.
Okay. Why are we saying Matub is a menace? That's right. Talk about random. Okay.
Because to Aaron, he is. Also to me, but
we love Matub. Okay. So tell our audience what you do on reporting as eligible. What's your role there, and what's their little niche, if you will?
So reporting as eligible is my baby, and I'm officially the host of it, but JR is actually the host of it. So that's JR Radcliffe, who is the trending sports reporter for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, the biggest newspaper in the state of Wisconsin. He is a pro. He has a fantastic voice for doing that kind of thing, and he keeps Matt and I from talking for 3 straight hours and does a great job of it. He also has an encyclopedic knowledge of all sports trivia and knows things that are going on that the rest of us don't, because he's an actual real journalist and is great on every single podcast he's ever done. And Matub, he's been on this show, I believe, and everybody knows him. He does a lot of front end work, more so this year than normal at Acme Packing Company, but he also does a lot of background work there. He is very good at putting together creative things, putting together memes, and Matt's great at technology stuff and talking as well. And he's a little younger than us, so he knows about things that are going on that JR and I frankly just don't. And we do our niche is very analytical, and that's me driving that. But the other thing Matt does bring that sometimes actually annoys listeners is his knowledge of Madden, the football game, because Madden is important for analytics. It is a football simulation machine that allows you to run, thousands of iterations of plays and whatnot. And a lot of, frankly, great strategic minds come from that as a background too. So I do a lot more actual like statistical stuff and talk about the underlying things that people don't know about in terms of why the Packers are winning and losing. And that's what we do more than anything else, is try to delve into exactly what did go right and wrong for the team in a way that you won't get on most other podcasts.
And it's worth
Love
adding
that.
to, as a huge fan of the podcast, somebody who likes it so much that I joined the Patreon for it, that it's a fun podcast. I love it because the interaction between the three of you is really good, like great chemistry. You play off each other well. Matub will like go into weird digression about something random, and you guys are like, okay, so anyhow,
Yeah.
but like it's entertaining. Usually between 60 and 90 minutes. Would you say, Paul? Is that about
Yeah,
right?
that's about right. We usually come right
Typically?
between there. It's longer if we don't have JR. It's shorter if you.
Yeah.
If we
Yes,
do.
keeping on the rails.
Yep.
And there's always a lot of great information and insight analysis. But I think one of the things that sets it apart from a lot of other podcasts is that you guys always take our questions from the fans. So from the Patreon, from Blue Sky, from Twitter, from everywhere, people
Yeah.
can submit questions. And the people who ask the questions, that's phenomenal questions they submit. I mean, as somebody who like has submitted questions to like the Wednesday Pack a Day for years now, when I started listening to your podcast, I was like, I need to up my game. Like, these are way better questions than I've ever asked. So
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite things about that
So
show.
we do have, as Matt mentioned, we do have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/MKE Tailgate. It's under the rubric of my other podcast, which is older and has been going on longer. And we do have a good stable of loyal listeners. When we started doing it, we always gave like one of our just carrots for people to join the Patreon is for any amount of money, even the tiniest amount, you get question priority. So if you want to ask a question, throw us a few bucks, you'll always be on the show. And it used to be like 3 or 4 years ago, we would have like nine-ish questions from Patreon. And we'd take some Twitter ones and some Discord ones, and Blue Sky didn't exist at the time. But we've gotten to the point now where we've grown to the point where it's like 20 to 25 Patreon questions every time. And they're very motivated question askers. They're people who are, invested in the show, who are really who enjoy being on there and asking good questions. And it really has driven quality of those questions quite high. We used to have to do a lot more filtering and a lot more editing, and now they just bring us good stuff every week, and I'm thankful for that. We are trying to promote Blue Sky a little bit and get stuff kind of moved over there too, because Twitter. Yeah.
There are good reasons for that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. It sounds like the whole idea of getting insights that other people wouldn't normally hear from others, especially with JR being a reporter and having sources, and not only just having sources, but being credible because he is a reporter. So that it's not as much speculation. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I love speculating, but I'm just saying that's what sets you apart from other podcasts. So I like that. So if you're not watching or listening to Reporting is Eligible, you might want to check it out. So what do you cover on the Milwaukee's Tailgate podcast? So what's that about?
So that is about the Milwaukee Brewers, and I basically started Reporting is Eligible as a spinoff from that. When I was doing a baseball one, it's like, well, at the time I started Reporting is Eligible, it's 5 years old now. There's been a lot of podcast growth in the last 5 years. Like there were not that many Packer podcasts when we started doing it. Now it's probably quintupled at least. But Tailgate's about the Brewers, and there's not that many Brewers podcasts. And we're actually the second iteration of hosts on that show now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we are. It started off with JP Breen, Steve Garshinsky, and Ryan Top, who's still there, and the host of that show. And I'm like I said, I'm version 2.0 here. So Steve and JP had to do other stuff. And so now it's with James Langer, who is a journalist and video producer in Madison. Ryan, who has a normal day job, I'll say that, and me. And I actually got into football by covering baseball first. I was a big sabermetrics guy, big Bill James and Moneyball guy. Back when I was like a teenager-ish to 20s. And it just became difficult to do that kind of work in baseball. Like it's just run by engineers and MIT grads and some of the smartest people in the world now. And there's not a lot of novel stuff you can do as a hobbyist. There still is, but it takes a lot of work, more than I'm willing to do. But I can still talk about all that stuff on a podcast just fine, especially about the Brewers, who are a very forward-thinking baseball team for the most part in the nerdy analytical ways. They do a couple things wrong, but they're an interesting team to cover, and they especially lately, they've been an interesting team to cover. They've been one of the most progressive teams in the league for quite a few years now too. So they always give you something interesting to talk about.
As somebody who doesn't really follow baseball, but is proud of like Wisconsin things, it's good to know that they have some stuff like that going for them. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah. They're the most analytical team in baseball is the Tampa Bay Rays. They employ the most nerds. There's charts out there for that. And they're in the hardest division with the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Blue Jays and the Orioles to a usually lesser extent, but not right now. And the Brewers kind of do half of what they do in a not as hard division. And the Brewers, famously, if you don't follow baseball, you might not know this, just lost their manager, Craig Counsell, to the Cubs. Craig Counsell is easily the best manager in baseball and allows the Brewers to implement a lot of their cheap, smart ways that they maybe won't be able to do anymore. So that's what it's been all about right now. The Brewers also just got a new stadium deal. They're not getting a new stadium, but they're getting a huge refurb on their current stadium to the extent that they could have just built another stadium with the amount of money that they're getting. So that was, of course, controversial, as those things always are. But they're going to be in Milwaukee for till 2050 now. So that's what we've been doing there lately.
I mean, there's a lot of overlap, of course, with Packers Twitter and any other sort of Wisconsin sports Twitter. So there's been a lot of stuff about Craig Counsell, on my feed this week for sure. So
yeah, I noticed it too. I didn't know what was going on.
I'm glad to look like, so what are people mad about here exactly?
Man. So the 5-second version of this is, so Craig Counsell's contract was up, and it's pretty clear, although not reported 100%, that he's had some disagreements with the organization. We don't really know what they are. Craig's also a former player. He's a big union guy, and he stated, I don't know if he stated publicly, but he definitely leaked that he wanted to set the market for managers, just like you would if you're a very, very good player. And so he basically stated or leaked out that he wanted the most money that you could get, and it was implied that the Brewers would be able to match. But the Brewers did this thing that they've done before with people they can't afford, which is they learned he was going to get an offer that they didn't want to match. And so they made him a very, on the surface, generous offer that he wouldn't take because he's going to get something better. And here's the thing is, they thought they were going to lose him to the Mets. The Mets hired the Brewers' former general manager during the season, David Stearns. Everybody thought Craig Counsell was going to go back to him, to a place where he could get have more money to spend, better players. And the Mets purportedly offered him $7 million a year to be their manager. And I think the Brewers at that point were like, hey, that's fine. Go be with the Mets, go get paid. We'll deal with it. And then at the last second, the Cubs swooped in and gave him $8 million.
Wow. The drama. I love it.
And, it's losing him to the Mets is one thing. Losing him to the Cubs is a completely different thing.
Right.
Craig Counsell is from Wisconsin. He is a hometown boy. He is a former Brewer player. Yeah. His kids, one of them goes to Wisconsin. They both live in the Midwest. And so, this is seen as a huge betrayal, leaving the Brewers to go to the Cubs. And that's why it's sort of captured Brewers people so much, is they were okay with him going, it's like, hey, good luck. Thank you for all you did for us. Now it's like, screw you.
That's crazy.
So the other thing that makes this a little skeezier than normal, and I don't blame guys for taking the most money. For us, it's a big rivalry. For people in the game, it's just another company you can go work for. However, his sort of leaked rhetoric about wanting to set the market is a little hollow, because the Cubs had a manager. His name is David Ross. And when Craig Counsell became available and they hired him, they just fired David Ross after 2 days earlier, being like, oh, no, you're our manager.
Oh, wow.
So Craig got a guy fired too, which is not as cool. So this is one of those situations where I think everybody is a little bit wrong, and it's kind of just a sad situation from a Milwaukee perspective. But there was some writing on the wall too. There's some weirdness, like the front office. There's a guy on the Brewers named Brian Anderson, not the guy who calls games for them, a different Brian Anderson. And the front office was insisting he be on the team, and Craig Counsell was insisting he never ever play. And for 2 months, wouldn't play him, even in obvious situations where you would play him. He just wouldn't play him. And it was definitely like a don't do that, front office. I am not happy with you move. So there were some other little signs like that along the way. A lot of drama, a lot of fun Brewer drama.
I love that. I mean, it's just as intriguing as this whole CIA conversation going on. I mean, it's like drama behind the scenes, all the chess playing and sure, we want people to you know, we respect people that make career choices, but it was, yeah, it just sounds really, it went to the Cubs. I mean, that would be like the Packers. It would be like Mark Murphy going to the Bears. I don't even like to say it out loud.
Be like Brett Favre going to the Vikings, actually.
Yeah. It's ugly. That's ugly. Wow. Thank you. That is intriguing. I love it. Okay. So even though I mean, I used to go to Brewers games when I lived in Wisconsin. I would never watch baseball on TV or anything because I think it's boring, but going to a game, and I've seen Padres here and Angels and Dodgers and not recently, but it's fun to go to a baseball game, I guess. I do not like the smell of ketchup, so that's always been a problem for me.
Well, okay. So you should go to Wrigley, where they don't put ketchup on hot dogs and brats. But also at Miller, I'm just calling it Miller Park. I'm sick of having to check myself on this. They use Secret Stadium sauce, not ketchup, and it is delightful. So.
Oh, okay. Well, back in the day, it was ketchup, but I used to go and, you know, have some drinks and have fun. Yeah. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was fun. But I will say I did go do the sausage run. The sausage run was really fun. The 5K.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Run with the sausages, or how's it? Yeah, that was a trip. That was a trip.
Tonight you're gonna run with the sausages.
Have you ever done that, Matt? Have you guys done that? You know what it is?
I know what it is. I've never done it.
It's so funny. And then you run right through the stadium too.
Yeah.
And then you're out. Yeah, it's really cool.
That's fun.
The new stadium. Yeah, it's a cool experience. We took my sister and I did it. We took her 2 grandchildren. And of course it's always like hot, like in August or July or something, and these guys have these sausage costumes on. It's pretty crazy, but the interaction with the sausages is so much fun. Even as a vegan, I love it. It's fun. It's like they're running next to you and they're like really big, and
they're huge. They're giant costumes.
That's
giant costumes, like 10 feet tall. Yeah.
Always, if you're ever at the stadium and you were betting on the race, always bet against the chorizo. The chorizo is very top heavy because of the sombrero.
Oh, okay.
Everybody who's ever run in it will tell you it's hard to run in that thing. It falls over a lot. All the other ones are more not aerodynamic, but well balanced to run in. And if anybody ever does win as the chorizo, that person deserves a medal.
They are overcoming barriers.
Yeah.
They are taking on challenges.
I forgot about that. My sister did explain to me. I mean, we just did. I'm like, if it's a race, I'm in. You know, I used to just do every race that I could do when, late. And because it's just a 5K. So, but she did explain the sausage thing to me, like where it came from. I forgot all about that. Now you just brought that all back to my mind. And now it's so funny. It's so funny. It's actually a thing. And the chorizo will fall down. Yeah. I think one fell down in the race. I'm pretty sure more than once. I passed them, but yeah, it was fun. Cool.
When I think of people in sausage costumes, though, I don't know if Aaron's still in the chat or not, still watching, but I was thinking of Jimmy Christensen. He took one of the sausages to prom. That's the fun fact about him for sure. It's one of his fun facts.
In a costume?
He dated a sausage. No, I think she probably was wearing a prom dress, but one of the people who was one of the sausages.
That's too much. That's too much. Okay, Aaron's back. Jimmy's ex-girlfriend.
Wait, we're both trying to put it up here. We're all trying to fight for it. Here, you got it done. You got it. Hit the button at the same time.
I'm used to doing it. Okay, that is.
Aaron was thinking the same thing. So yeah, Jimmy's ex-girlfriend or something. He dated a sausage. It was fantastic.
Yeah, jinx. We're like trying to get that out. Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's not many things that I don't. Yeah, I sign up for everything. Okay. That was great. I love this conversation. We haven't even gotten to our superlatives yet. Okay, right. So you do a lot. You have a full-time job. You have family. I'm guessing you commute to work on the train, right? You've got the L train there.
Yep.
And then you have these 3. You do all this content creation. You do numbers. You do all kinds of stuff. Do you do do you get involved in the draft with your?
I do a lot of draft stuff. Yeah, I have. I have metrics I created to do
Mhm.
quarterback and wide receiver scouting. So I do
Mhm.
those every time. They work pretty well. They like Dontavian
Well,
Wicks a lot this past
Mm,
year. So
for good reason.
and are correct about that. Uh,
so we always wonder, how do you get that all done, and who in your life supports you the most, so that you can get all that done, because it has to be with some sacrifice to your
yeah.
personal life.
Yeah. So definitely my wife. I am married. We do both work. She does as well. But she's organized and good about helping out with the kids. But we're split relatively evenly. She'd not like that if she heard it, but
I bet you. Yeah.
she does a lot. But we each have like after hours nighttime activities, and I do podcasts and stuff like that, and she does stuff too. And so yeah, it all works out pretty well. And she knows I like doing all this stuff, and it all it stays pretty balanced. And yeah, and I also just don't like not doing stuff. Like I don't really watch. I watch sports on TV, although I watch them a lot on my phone and stuff. I don't really watch shows very much. I'm bad at watching television shows. I just am. And I am usually working on something versus like sitting around doing something else. And I try to do like one or two like creative projects a year too, which is how I end up with things like my parody songs and my games that I make on
Mhm.
APC and stuff like that. So I got one working right now actually that's Aaron inspired, but I got to finish it and it's
Ooh.
taking a long time. And I've been able to sing for like 2 months because my voice is shot. And I'm trying to get Matt to do it. So yell at Matt to do it for me. But we'll get there soon. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Matt's
But
got music skills. Yeah, he's got a good voice. He can play
he's
some
good at
piano.
I'm the
So.
worst
Oh, I
singer
thought
of
you
the
meant this Matt. This
No,
Matt.
No,
no,
Matub.
Matub.
Yeah, Matub. Matub
Oh.
and JR are both good at singing, and I'm not. But I'm the one who does it, so that's that's just how we roll.
I've been singing on some of my YouTube videos this last couple weeks. Dropping a
great.
few.
Mhm.
Yeah,
All right.
not a whole song though, just like a little bit here and there, because it's just easier to sing it than to go get the clip and put it in and all. It's like, I'm just gonna
Yes.
sing it right here.
And for those in the comments, if you want to hear one of my songs, go to YouTube and search Aaron Rodgers Instagram, and that'll pop right up for you.
Oh
Or
my
just
gosh.
the Badger Noonan YouTube channel. You'll see all that stuff.
Well, and that'll be in we always drop all the links that we're talking about in the
Yeah.
show notes when you go to our podcast too. So you'll
Aaron,
have
I'm
that.
very, very sorry. I'm almost done. It's been taking forever. I got really, really swamped for a while, and I was trying to get it done before the first snowfall in Green Bay, and I'm not going to do it, but I'll have it like before the end of the season for sure. I'm almost there, really close.
Yeah. Yeah,
It'll happen.
Carla's into it. Carla is totally into it, and I think we've got Ram from the Netherlands on board as well. Okay, so thank you to your wife. We love her. If you don't want to use her name, that's okay, but send her our love and appreciation for supporting you so that you can do everything, including writing songs that I didn't know about. This is great. So we really appreciate all you do to contribute to Packers and Brewers community and all that sausage information that I didn't remember. So this is our final question, then we'll get to our superlatives. What is the one thing you love the most about Packers Twitter, and one thing you would change if you had the power to change it?
Sure. What I like the most is it is a very positive place, generally speaking, especially people who cover it. And so here's the thing. Like the beat writers, I will sometimes get on for not asking tough enough questions, but there's only like 4 of them, and everybody else who covers it is free to be as positive as they want. And I do like that attitude about it because it's nice. It's very, very different, by the way, than the Brewers and a lot of baseball team coverage and a lot of other football teams too, where it's negative all the time. And like I just do appreciate that about it. However, on the flip side, I do wish that there was a little bit more acceptance of like the analytics side that like I try and do. Part of this is self-inflicted because a lot of analytics people are frankly jerks and not good salespeople, and I'm guilty of that every once in a while myself. A lot of the PFF guys who've left, like Eric Eager and Ben Baldwin, are abrasive people in how they go about doing that, and they do themselves a disservice. But not everybody is. Like Aaron Schatz, who created Football Outsiders, is by all accounts pretty normal and nice guy and does not yell at people and swear at people for being stupid. But every time I post anything, usually very positive, like I did a Rashawn Gary one today about Rashawn Gary is actually better than you probably think he is. I just have these random people come in and just basically say you're dumb with nothing other than that on Twitter all the time. I get a lot of that. I get more of that on Packers Twitter than I do in Brewers Twitter. I think just because there's more people in Packers Twitter. The Packers are very popular. The Brewers are far, far, far less popular.
Okay.
And so there's this like undercurrent of people whenever you tweet anything, and especially when I do something that's like 4 or 5 long, that just show up and yell at me for no reason. And people who show up and they're like, well, have you disagree with you? Have you seen this thing? Or even like are more good natured. That's fine. But there's just this group of Twitter cloud occupiers who are just like, oh, you're dumb. And that's it. And then they move on. Like, why'd you even bother with that? Yeah. Don't do that. Like, there's no reason to do that. So that one. But coverage guys are all great. Like, I like the Cheesehead TV guys' general tenor of being very positive. I like how Andy Herman goes about things. Like, I like how everybody who works at my place does things. It's just a good group of people.
Yeah,
I think so too. Absolutely.
We agree. That's why we're here. We love it. Yeah, but I do wish people would just. I mean, I don't think. I think I mentioned to Matt too that I feel like I found that kind of sweet spot in true crime too, where it's a very supportive online community for the most part, but you're always going to get someone who just wants to be hurtful and bullying and that kind of thing, or jealous or whatever. But for the most part, it's a high majority of people that are super positive, super positive. And I like that. So let's because it's been almost an hour, which I love that. I hope you have time to stay on. Do you have
one of
time
my
to stay on?
podcasts. Yeah, I'm good.
No, I'm here for it. I'm not complaining. I just want to make sure you're okay with it because you've got kids. I don't. And it's 3 hours earlier for me, though. I'm on a different time zone over here. So this is the time during our show where we like to switch on over to the superlatives. Mosey on over, swish, 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 swish on
Mosey
over.
On over. All right.
Get over there. Just not like a hard stop, but I mentioned I didn't bring superlatives this week. I'm bad. I'm just bad at my job.
Oh, don't worry, Dawn, because Paul has some good ones. So
Paul has some great ones. We have a guest, and it was and then you don't need mine, so I'm bad. And I will not. I'm not gonna lie. I do stay off Packers Twitters when we're losing, because I just don't need that negativity in my life. I just like I watch all the football games, and it was a hard one. It was a squeaker. It was a squeaker last week, and I like squeakers. It was fun. It was exciting, but it was like I can't watch type of game ending. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah. So I will not lie that this season has been a little bit more difficult for me to take in the kind of content that I used to, and also I'm just really distracted with this trial. So okay. So having said all of that.
The good news is that this last week after the loss, Packers Twitter has been more positive than it has been pretty much all season, because it was like the team looked good and they didn't hurt their draft position. This is actually really great. It's perfect.
Yeah, they threaded the needle really, really well.
It was a good week from Packers Twitter.
Yeah, it was. I also think there's a lot of analysis on losses that isn't like ripping the team so much as explaining like where things did go wrong and what they can do better. It's actually pretty constructive. Mm-hmm. Like there, you get some Rube stuff every once in a while, like fire the coach and blah, 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 and all that stuff. That still happens, but it's not that prevalent. A lot of it is like, with Joe Barry, it happens, but a lot of it is like, hey, they're still doing this. They're lining up wrong here. Like this is a problem they should fix. A lot of times it gets fixed. Just one thing that we've been harping on all year is Jordan Love's deep ball needs work. It's not great. It's been bad since college. I actually wrote about it before the game, and then it didn't get published in time. It was, it gets too full. You can't put two things out at the same time. Mm-hmm. And the Packers clearly know about it. And Jordan Love actually threw some really nice deep balls against the Steelers. It's clear he was, is being told about that and working on stepping into that. And that stuff like that's good to see. So even the negatives that get pointed out a lot, I feel like are like much more just like, here's some things they need to work on. They probably are working on them. Let's see what happens. And that's the way to go about it.
I
Absolutely.
have a question about that. Sorry, I have to interject. Is that okay? I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Do you think, both of you, my personal feeling is he has the talent to throw those deep balls. It's not that he doesn't have the arm or the capability. And he's such a cool guy, but do you think there's still an element of he's panicking a little and that's where the inaccuracy comes on his deep ball? Or do you think it's actually his skill level?
I have a theory about his deep ball. I have no support for it, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So Jordan's got a good arm. There used to be this great analyst named Tim Dix who worked for Baseball Prospectus and did football work for just a little bit, but fortunately Jordan caught the window where he was able to do frame by frame analysis on quarterbacks in college throwing like their bullet passes, their outs and their down the seam passes, and basically determine in football scenarios how good their arms were. And Jordan's is really, really good. Like he can rip it down the seam like few other guys can. We put a 70 on his arm strength on the 28. It's a baseball thing. It's really good arm. You don't need to care about that. But to us, it looks like on his deep ball that he was ripping it. He was throwing line drives instead of putting air underneath it. And it looks to me like in college, a coach got into him and told him, like, you got to get some air under this thing. You got to give your receivers a chance to adjust to it in the air. And his mechanics on his deep throw are completely different than they are on every other throw. He almost always throws them off his back foot, and he almost like flicks it like a 3-point shot instead of just throwing it and letting it rip. Like he's aiming it instead of throwing it is what we like to say. In baseball, pitchers have this happen a lot when they lose their command. They start trying to aim it instead of just throw it and trust their muscle memory and their mechanics. And that's what he looks like he's doing when he throws his deep stuff. And he'd probably benefit from actually throwing a little bit more of a line drive because that's where his mechanics are best. And he did that in the last game. So I think a coach got into him in college where it is beneficial a lot of the time, where especially if you are the talented team, to get it way up in the air so that your receivers can go and grab the ball. And he did have two very large receivers in college. Their names are escaping me. One of them's last name was Mariner. I'll never forget that one. Where they scored a ton of touchdowns on just post-ups to Mariner, on him throwing the ball up to Mariner. And I think that's his problem. And they need to coach that out of him and make him throw the ball deep like he throws the ball every other way.
Okay.
I got nothing to add.
That's very reasonable. That's really reasonable. I listened to the quarterback school on him almost every week. A couple weeks I took off because I just had to. I was mourning, but I did listen to it this week, and he didn't really. There's something going on, and that seems right. I mean, how do you get him out? Oh, I have another question. Does he get balls tipped more than other quarterbacks? Is there a statistic for that?
It's not too bad. Yeah,
because he's so tall, I wouldn't think he would. I wouldn't think he'd get that many. But even Justin Herbert gets tip balls. Like, how can he get a tip ball? He's 6'6".
Love does drop down to sidearm pretty often, and often that is to throw into a tight window. And not to over baseball this, but we have an analogy too that is the best shortstops make the most errors because they get to the hardest balls. And Jordan will go sidearm and drop down, away from his vertical where he can get it over the line. Often to get it through a tight passing window. He does that often, and it works a lot. A lot of his highlights are that throw, but it also means that alignment is close to blocking that throwing window when he does that. And so those get batted down quite a bit too.
Okay. They can see
but
it.
He's tall. He's got long arms and he's tall.
Yeah.
When it's over the top delivery, it should basically never happen.
So are you high on his promising? Do you think he's promising, or do you think they're going to just move on?
I'm not a high on Jordan Love person. He was not a prospect I liked out of college. The best indicators for NFL success out of college are your completion percentage, your game started, and your completion percentage kind of adjusted for how deep you throw it down the field. And he just wasn't a very accurate passer. Those guys tend not to work out. There's the occasional exception, like with Josh Allen. But if you're going to Josh Allen for a comp, you're probably not doing very well. And he does still have a lot of the problems that he had in college. He has gotten better. He has improved certain things. But I still think his ceiling is like a kind of an averagey quarterback. And that's kind of the worst thing you can have. Honestly, like going into the season, I was hoping he'd either be absolutely dynamite like CJ Stroud's been, or terrible. Like either one of those is better than being like kind of tantalizingly mediocre, which is kind of what you got right now, which scares me.
And it's not the Packer way, really.
Yeah.
After what we've
Not
seen, but
for a
I
while,
mean,
yeah.
unless they go to the supposed Matt LaFleur offense and run the ball, and like the 49ers don't have spectacular quarterbacks, right? And they still win games.
That is all true.
argue.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can do it with
Okay.
with that, but yeah, you'd rather have a good one though.
Yeah.
Sure.
Definitely.
As a Packer fan, for sure. Maddie, anything to add to that? Sorry, those random questions. Those are my
No.
superlative questions. Okay. All right, let's start our superlatives. So since you're the guest, let's have your first one, Paul.
Okay. My first one's in the chat. So my first one is best recruiting, which at Acme Packing Company, which is one of the SB Nation sites. I actually think we specifically do a really good job bringing on talent. And Aaron at Heroin, if you don't follow on Twitter, you should. Recently joined, I think like 2 days ago. So we've added a whole bunch of good people lately. She being one of the best. So I did want to point that out. If you didn't know, Aaron's got some pieces up there already. Go check them out.
What?
And Aaron, I put you in my superlatives before you were in the chat, so I'm not doing it just because you can hear it right now.
Not pandering to the audience. It's actually it's in the show doc. I saw it earlier, so yes, can confirm on that. Yeah, I was so excited. I don't know if either of you saw the post that I put up. I'm just kind of reposting that Aaron's stuff is up there now. I got really excited about it. So, huge get for Acme Packing Company. Huge get.
I do think we are one of the best destination sites. Tex is the managing editor there. He takes very good care of his people. They're very good and flexible with their freelancers. I'm just a freelancer there, and I can kind of just do whatever I want. I just like having a place to write, but like having Justice aboard is a huge coup. I think in terms of pure talent on those sites, we are one of, if not the best one that there is.
Yeah,
that comes as no surprise.
That's a good one.
That's the thing that I wonder about a lot is like how the what I'm trying to say, like the comparison of the content, the quality of content, like for Packer stuff versus other fan bases in the NFL. I think about that a lot. And how could it be better? We have so many good people doing so much good stuff.
Yeah, it's really excellent.
It's bar none. Seriously, it has to be. And and other teams say this, so it has to be true. It has to be. We think we're so
there are other good ones. I have like an internal ranking of it, but Packers is very, very good.
Oh, do you?
And
I listen to other teams. Yeah. I talk about them, and sometimes they make our superlatives here. Maddie, what do you have for your number one superlative?
All right, the first one I have for this week is best article opening. So this was an article that Bill Hubert wrote this week. The title was Packers run defense slammed back into reality by Steelers. We looked like our run defense was good for a couple weeks, and then not this last game, that's for sure. Career games for some of their people is ridiculous. But so Bill's article opens with this. It says, the Green Bay Packers' suddenly stout run defense turned out to be nothing more than a chunk of fool's gold in a manure pile. I mean, that is gold. That is fool's gold, but that is gold. That's a great opening. Bill doesn't always go quite that that's colorful.
That's out of character a little bit. I like it.
I know. Kind of caught me off guard when I saw that.
We like that.
I love it. Yeah, no, he dug into it, as it were, from there. But I mean, he made the point real fast right after this. Says, in a loss to the Minnesota Vikings and a win over the Los Angeles Rams the previous two games, the Packers allowed 130 rushing yards on 57 carries. That 2.28 yard average was literally just inches from being number one in the league during that span. The Pittsburgh Steelers smacked the Packers right back into reality. Like, yep, cutting right to the point there. They're good, and then nope, not so good. So that opening just it got me, made me laugh.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Good job, Bill.
Made me cry. Made you laugh. Made me cry.
It was better than cats.
Laughing and crying. Very, very. Yeah.
Such a weird thing to fail at this week. The Pittsburgh's not a good running team. They have been all season. There's no reason to get gashed on the ground by them. And so they played the Rams 2 weeks ago with a non-quarterback, And they stuffed the run because they didn't have to worry about Brett Rippon doing anything because he's not an NFL quarterback. Kenny Pickett's barely an NFL quarterback. And you really could have just taken the game plan from the Rams and transplanted it directly onto the Steelers and won that game.
Yes.
And they didn't. They played it like a team with an average passing game and an average running game, and played like they were afraid of Kenny Pickett passing. And that's my big problem with that guy. He had the solution right there. He just did it. Just do it again.
Yeah.
So
But-
frustrating to watch.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. So do we have a coaching problem? Okay, I know I have another question.
That one we
we have a
do.
coach?
But, yeah.
Okay. Okay, what's your second superlative then?
Related. Yeah. So I'm gonna start with this. This is a two-parter, but start with the second half first. A lot of people made this point. I think Andy Herman was the genesis of it. But and I missed who asked this, but someone asked Matt LaFleur why they use 2 down linemen in obvious rushing situations on defense, and Matt LaFleur got all hacked off. And all of Packer Twitter, who does film study, Dusty and Andy and everybody else, had these nice shots up of the Packers basically having 2 down linemen and their edge rushers split wide in just begging the Steelers to run against me on short yardage, which they did and scored over and over again. And Matt LaFleur got all hacked off, saying, you guys don't know what you're talking about. We have 4 down linemen because the edge rushers are down linemen, which, I mean, it's one of those things like technically you're correct, which is the best kind of correct, unless the other team's going to run it down your throat because that's what you think.
Right.
And
Case.
yes, and Rashawn Gary is a lot of things, but he's not good at stopping the run. He is not good at setting the edge, and he's not good at power up the middle. And Preston's okay at it, but then they're in nickel too. And so there's a DB on, and so like Matt LaFleur, I feel like was very disingenuous on that point, how he answered, which brings me back to the first one, which I think has actually been a superlative on this show before. But it is John Meerdink's piece from, I think, several years ago now about how football is knowable.
Yep.
And
Knowable, yes.
If you're a coach and you get a question like that, and the results of the play was clearly bad, you can't just insult everybody's intelligence for not knowing ball anymore, because the people you're insulting do know ball. And if you are interpreting it that they don't, you're being disingenuous in what they do. And John's piece about football being knowable is outstanding, and it will be timeless, and everybody should go read it.
It is so good. When it came out, that was like number 1 with a bullet superlative for me that week. Do you remember what it was in reaction to? Because I feel like it was some
I don't.
That's what I can remember. I almost think it was Bill Huber said something that kind of got him going, but maybe I can't remember what.
I think it was. I think you're right about that. I mean, I'm drawing a blank on what it actually was, but I think that's correct. Was it DVOA? Was that the DVOA gate?
I think it was a situation where people were trying to understand why a certain decision was made or something, and Bill's like, well, without the playbook we can't really know what was.
It was something like that. You're right.
Yeah, and John Payne well, I think we can figure it out. And it was the most I don't know, because John's such a laid back, such a staid sort of presence, and so for him to be like, look, buddy, in the most John Muir-Dink way, it was amazing.
Honestly, everybody who works for a team should really be careful about that at this point. I started doing baseball, and there was a point in time in baseball where outside analysts were better at baseball than insiders were. And at football, there's a decent chance that for a lot of teams, that's where we currently are. So you might you're a coach, fine. You know football, fine. There's a lot of people who know football, and you can't just talk over them anymore. That does not work.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, especially in Wisconsin. He should know that. Yeah. Doesn't he know that yet? Come on. I think he's feeling like his back's against the wall right now, though, too. So, I mean, understandably, it's just a whole different world right now for him. So, and he was really high. It doesn't get talked about much, but before the draft happened of Jordan Love, it was quietly reported by somebody, I don't remember who, but behind the scenes that Matt LaFleur was super high on Jordan Love. So
high on Jordan Love. I was like, where are you going with this?
Yeah.
I know. No, he was so high.
He was super high. No, that's his friend, Daniels.
Sorry. He was so high on Jordan Love. because so I think that he's really feeling the pressure because he really wanted him. He owns him, like he owns his success in his job is going to be so.
Could be tied
Okay,
together
Maddie,
much
what's
so.
your number 2?
Well, this ties into the things you both just said, actually, because I think it was Schneidman who did that report about LaFleur being really high on him.
It was.
And so Matt Schneidman has a podcast he started this season with John Kuhn called The Brick and the Stick. It's an interesting listen every time. This week's was especially good because they got into Matt LaFleur's reaction and like what could have been going on there. And the point they were kind of making is that when you see that kind of a reaction from a coach, they're being defensive about something, like there's something going on that's like, it's like triggering them. And so that was an interesting insight. I hadn't thought of it that way. I thought maybe he's just like in a bad mood, but no, it's probably something like that is being discussed in the background. And they were saying that a thing that they tell, that like the teams will tell the players and the coaches is like, don't even look on social media. Don't be aware of what people are saying about you. Just, totally tune that out. It's not going to help. It's going to get in your head. So for Matt LaFleur to react like that, Schneidman is saying like, he must be reading something about what somebody's saying about him or the team or Joe Barry or something. And so like, he better not keep doing that. It's not helpful for him and the team. And that was a bit of insight I had no idea about. And that was just one of the interesting, insightful things in this episode. Because he also talked about player availability for the media and kind of the rules around that, which I didn't know there were rules. I guess every week, every player has to be available at least once in the week for the media. And like whether or not somebody talks to them, like nobody's probably going and talking to, I don't know. How about Royce Newman every week? Like, I don't think people care.
Not.
But any
Probably
player
not.
at least once has to be available. So I guess it's been a thing now that Devondre Campbell has been refusing to talk to the media. Won't even, do like a show up and like, I'm just here so I won't get fined kind of a thing, So it's like it's been elevated like through certain levels and certain I guess organizations or offices or whatever you want to say, to the point now where he's probably gonna get fined like I think it was $25,000 a week for every week that he doesn't talk to the media. So hearing some of the insight on how that stuff works was also super fascinating. And so along with it, then you also have in the episode the the chemistry between John Kuhn and Matt Schneidman is interesting because it's like I can tell they like each other, but there seems to be like a competitiveness to like get takes out, and it makes for a really interesting listen, especially you compare and contrast that with the old head of the pack that Schneidman was doing with the aforementioned Bill Huber, where they were just kind of like kind of chill, kind of vibing. It's a very different sort of atmosphere in this one. I would recommend it. It's an interesting listen every time. Only nine episodes in, it's been really good.
Love it.
You guys checked it out at all yet? Or have you heard any of that?
I have not, actually. I am behind on all podcasts. So
it's not on Apple Podcasts yet either. I have to go to Spotify to listen to it, but hopefully it'll be to Apple soon. That's my platform of choice. But yeah, highly recommended. That was in this episode especially. Really, really good one.
Love it. That's a good one, Maddie. I love it. All right. And Paul, I still want to call you Badger, but Paul.
You can if you want.
I'm always confused. Like,
yes. My third one, also semi-related, is best crossover tweet. And it comes from my friend Jonathan Judge, who is Baklaw on Twitter. And if you don't know who Jonathan is, because this is a football podcast, he is... I'm just going to call him the head of Baseball Prospectus. His title there is ambiguous, but he is one of their chief statisticians and does a lot of their very high-level work. Jonathan is first of all, he is the smartest person I've ever met in my life. He is a piano virtuoso. He taught himself high-level statistical modeling as I don't know how old he is. Let's just say 40-year-old. Perfectly, to the extent that he could probably be like a Wall Street guy after self-teaching himself that. And he has reformed Baseball Prospectus from a pretty good statistical organization to like the best forefront of sports analytics that exists. So he is also from the Green Bay area. I went to the San Francisco playoff game with him when that happened, and he usually sticks to baseball, but he delves into football every once in a while. And Joe Barry got his goat the other day, which is what I wanted to point out, which is he tweeted,
Ooh.
are there really defensive coordinators in the NFL who believe that if they limit explosive plays, that everything else will fall into place? It's the same fallacy that caused coaches to kick on 4th and short for decades. Fear of loss should not outweigh need for gain. And a Barry problem is he treats all downs the same. A third down is your chance for a turnover. It's your chance to get off the field. And instead, he treats it like just if we don't allow a touchdown here, eventually the team will make a mistake and we'll get the ball back. Third down's your chance for that. Like, he's not aggressive. He plays guys too far back, and he does it all the time. And when Jonathan notices you're doing things quite wrong. John's worth a follow just for the instances where he jumps into football with something that's really getting his goat. He is also excellent on defense, of course. He is one of the pioneers of catch framing metrics and a whole bunch of other stuff, and DRA and DRS and all the baseball stats that nerds use today. So give him a follow and do pay attention to him on Sunday, just in case he does come up with something good.
Oh, I love that. I
What's
love
his name
that.
again? And what's his Twitter
So
handle?
it's Bach Law. He is a lawyer and he plays piano. So it's Bach as in Johann Sebastian. And Law
got it.
as in
Does
law.
he ever play the piano on Twitter or put it?
I've never heard him play the piano. I just know.
I'm gonna get on him and I'm gonna be like, please play the piano for. I love it. When I go home, I have always, because I come from a family of like good pianists, and I wasn't a good pianist, but we all played. But my mother and my grandfather and my grandfather's sister were just phenomenal, and so I still make my mother play for me every time. I didn't this year because she was so sick, but she started feeling better before I left, and my sister and I were chit-chatting, doing something for her. Like I was trying to fix something for her, and my sister was helping me, and she suddenly got on the piano. That's how we knew she was feeling better. It was so cool. It's just like the piano to me is like comfort food in a way. It's a family experience, and I just love it. So I'm going to get on there and say, because I love it. You know, there's a reporter for not the New York Times. It's who is he with now? Anyway, he's somewhere, and he used to, during COVID, he would do cello concerts on the roof of his apartment in New York City. So it's so cool when people bring other parts of themselves out like that. And so if he's a virtuoso on piano, I want to hear it. I'll do that. That's my mission.
Dials me up in his DMs looking for piano recordings.
Let's go. No, it's really cool when people, because we're all like, we follow football or we follow, a trial that we're interested or whatever. But we all have these other life, this whole other life and this life of experiences to share. And that's what I really love about what we do.
Yeah.
Get to know people, right?
Yep.
Totally.
Okay.
All right. Well, I've got one more. All right.
Okay.
So yeah, nothing like a good penis. So anyhow, the last one I have here.
Oh.
Huh? No, what? It's nothing like a good pianist. Well
okay.
done. So how about you heard? Anyhow, so the last one I have here is a tweet thread that CD Angeli, who goes by CD Thunder Vision on Twitter, wrote about wide receiver, like 1 versus 2 versus 3 versus 4. And I like this because people will often talk about like, oh, they're not really a wide receiver 1, they're more like a wide receiver 3. And it's like, how are we shaping this? How are we defining this? What does that mean? So this is just, CD's own sort of take on it. He's trying to say, like, I'm not trying to say I'm an expert, but this is how I see it, kind of the breakdown as I've developed it. So really great tweet thread. I'm going to just kind of hit the highlights here real fast. Basically, he's saying that, let's see here. I got to kind of dig into it here. Sorry, it gets a couple of tweets to get to it. And so a wide receiver 4 will shrink from the play, perhaps falling backward, and hopes both the defenders miss the ball and he can catch it on the ground. It's likely intercepted, and somebody else must make the tackle after it's intercepted. You're talking about wide receiver 3 will actively track the ball, but lose the battle for the ball, and thus focus on either trying to battle the ball after it's grasped by the defender or make the tackle following the interception. He says a wide receiver 2 then will actively jockey for the ball with the 2 defenders. There's a chance he'll make a contested catch, especially the defender, if the defender makes a mistake, but more likely they will defend the pass so no interception can happen. But then a wide receiver 1 goes up, makes the catch between the 2 defenders anyway. So, like, I love that idea of like, oh, these are things we can watch for and say, that is wide receiver 4 behavior that we're seeing here. This is an approach I'm going to be taking the next several weeks
Yeah.
as we see what Christian Watson does. And I've got
Right.
my Christian Watson jersey in the closet behind me. I believe, I want to believe, I want
Yeah.
so badly for him to be good.
Yeah.
After the flashes from last year. So I don't know. We'll see if it's just injury he's been battling through or what exactly. But
Yeah.
no, I think it's a really fascinating way to look at those things. So
That is an interesting way of doing it.
Mhm.
I feel like Watson may end up breaking that system a little bit because he put up essentially what I think most people would consider wide receiver 1 numbers last year,
Mhm.
despite being kind of a gadget player, which is kind of what Deebo Samuel is for the 49ers as well. He doesn't run the traditional route tree either. He's good in space, and he's basically good at using his physicality to get yards kind of no matter what. But he's never going to be like a contested catch guy. He's never going to be a like sharp Devontae like route runner. And I think Watson's kind of that. And he might get better, but a lot of the problem with Watson this year is they're not using him the same way. Reed's getting his jet sweeps, and they have a quarterback who, until last game, couldn't throw a deep ball, and that's one of the routes that Christian Watson needs to be able to produce on to be able to produce it all. So I think he'll get better when those things improve. But yeah.
And to be honest, Matt, the reason you have a Watson jersey is because the quarterback did throw a deep ball.
Yeah, because they used him well last year.
At that
did,
one
yeah,
time.
they did.
Right. So, or that one time. I don't feel like, well, especially because the team is so young, but in general, I don't feel like it has to be like 1, 2, 3, 4. I feel like I look at it as a more holistic game planning approach.
Yeah, for sure.
And I hate to do the 1, 2, 3, 4 because I really disliked the whole, Rodgers is only going to throw to one person that he trusts and all that crap. I'm just like, I don't even want to hear that concept.
That was
again.
annoying.
Right. It's so annoying. And so I'd hate for us to, it seems like people are trying to claw back to that. And it's like, no, we don't need to go back there. Let's not do that because that didn't work. They're both gone now. And so I just feel like a more holistic approach will keep me more sane as a fan. Yeah. Especially a fan who doesn't know anything about football that has a podcast about football.
Well, and for sure, like if you can develop the offense so people have like the different roles instead of being like you are the number 1, you're the number 2, for sure. So like the reason why I like this system is just because when people are talking about these different players as being a 1 or a 2 or 3, it's like okay, well, what does that mean? This is kind of a way to, I think, like grab out of that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But numbers. I don't know. The numbers thing is the part. Maybe you call them A, B, C, and D instead of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Maybe. Or
maybe.
Sure.
Yellow, red, green, and blue.
There you go.
Like that. Okay, guys. Any final thoughts before those are fantastic approaches. And again, if you're new to the show, new to the podcast, if you're listening, the links will be in the podcast notes description under the podcast on Saturday when our podcast drops everywhere you listen to your podcast. Right, Natty?
That's
Any
right.
final thought? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, unlike the Brick and the Stick, we are on Apple Podcasts. So
You're the what? The brick and the what?
The Brick and the Stick was that podcast I was talking about with Matt Schneidman and John Kuhn earlier is not yet available on Apple Podcasts. That's all.
It's not on Apple. Yeah, that takes a minute.
I'm sure it will be.
It takes a couple minutes.
Yeah.
I remember when we were young, Matt, and you would be like, why are we on Apple yet? I remember texting me.
Yeah,
I know, I'm like, whatever, it'll get there. I'm a pretty relaxed kind of person. I do my job, I do my thing, and then it has to, like, everybody else has to do their thing, and if they don't, it's not my problem.
Yeah,
there you go. That's good.
Perfect.
All right, so Paul, any final thoughts for us?
I guess as a final thought, pretty optimistic about the Chargers this week, even though they're, I would say, objectively a better team than the Packers are in skill position wise. They're pretty banged up. They're missing, they're going to be missing their second receiver who blew out his ACL early in the season, but maybe their best receiver too, who banged up his shoulder last game. But more than anything, the Chargers are.
Which one? Who was that?
I am Keenan Allen, right?
Yeah, Keenan Allen.
Oh, Keenan Allen did.
He did finish the game, but he didn't practice today. So.
Okay.
They are bad at power running, and the Packers' kryptonite is basically power running. So their offensive line is very poor at run blocking. Austin Eckler's great, but he's not good at between the tackle stuff. And the Packers are actually pretty decent at defending what the Chargers do. So quietly optimistic about this one. The Charger defense has been kind of lackluster too. It's okay, but it's not great. And the Packers have been competitive in every game where the other team can't punish them on the ground. So I do kind of like them for that. So I haven't picked him in a couple of weeks. I'm picking him this week. Well, I guess I picked him against the Rams. I haven't picked him against an NFL team in a couple of weeks. But I'm going to be doing that this time.
Well,
Seems
they're
like a
very
winnable
good at
game for sure.
losing. They're very good at losing. They're very good at what Packers do to like step on their own feet. I'm sorry, but I live in San Diego, so I know the Chargers. But yeah, it's a toss up. It's promising. Yeah, we could win. It's a home game, right? So
it is. They have to come. The Chargers have to come west, which is never good for West Coast teams.
And
come
cold.
East, sorry.
It's going to be cold. It's actually cold. What's it like over there in the weather?
It's actually not bad in Chicago right now. I do not know what Green Bay has been, but it's going to be colder than San Diego or Los Angeles is.
Yeah,
so.
That's for sure. Yeah, it'll be
I
outside.
But like how cold? Like what do you mean by? I know you say it's not that bad, but
it's not going to be bad. Sunday game time is going to be like 40 in Green Bay.
Okay, that's these people are like LA and San Diego people, so that's cold. Yeah. I always say that too. It's like I'm going to be my family. Oh, Dawn, it's going to be cold. Don't forget it's going to be cold here. And I'll be like, oh, I'll be fine. And then I get off the off airplane or out of the thing, and it's like, I can't feel my teeth. It's just
Oh yeah.
And then I come like the whole time. I'm like, oh my God, down comforters and down jackets and down hats and down gloves and all that stuff. Yeah, it's not. No, I can't imagine how these teams and likewise, like the worst place I think to play is Florida. Like it's so hot and it's so muggy and it's so, it's sunny. I mean, here it's sunny, but it's not like that wet, swampy. You mean an alligator could come right on the field in any minute, it's awful.
It's not the heat, it's the humidity.
Yep.
Right. And it's colder by the lake, right? Or no, it's cooler by the lake in the summer, and in the winter it's warmer by the lake. That those sayings I remember so much.
Well, it moderates the temperature. So Paul, where can people find your stuff?
All right. So I write a recap for the Shepherd Express, Milwaukee's alternative newspaper, every week. I write for Acme Packing Company every week. I do the podcast Reporting is Eligible about the Packers, the Milwaukee's Tailgate podcast about the Brewers, and I pop up in other places too, but those are the main ones. So I'm Badger Noonan on Twitter and all Twitter-like things as well, and you can also find me at any social media that happens to be popular at the moment under that name. So
okay, and all that we will make sure that we will have those in the show notes too.
Absolutely.
So because yes, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Paul, this has been fantastic having you. You've been a good supporter of the show, which we've appreciated very much. Very, very much. And so good to have this chance to sit down and talk with you for a bit. Thanks for coming on.
Nice.
Thanks very much for having me. And I do enjoy the show. I learn about new people every week. Last week was excellent, by the way. And
thank you.
That's good. That's good. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, we have fun, and I think that's all that matters. And I think people like that. People like to have fun.
All right, Dawn, anything else from you before I bring it home?
No, just super, super thankful, super glad we finally got you on here, and so glad you joined us. And we hope you have excellent a little bit of time with your family next week. Thank you to your wife personally for you for helping us have you in our life. So yeah, let's bring her home, Maddie.
All right. Well, friends, of course, you'll find links in our show description for everyone we mentioned, so please check it out. Also, we'd love to have a chance to interview you and shout you out if you're a subscriber and a football fan, or one or the other, whatever. If you'd like to nominate someone to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know. Our DMs are open on all the social platforms. And folks, when you subscribe to our podcast, you help us to keep spreading the love in our community. And the best way to help us, to help this podcast grow, is by sharing it with your friends and family.
Yes, Maddie, that's right, because we love you. We're so glad to know you, to be fans of you, and had the luxury of being fans of the most storied team in the NFL. We appreciate your support, your subscriptions, and sharing our pod, and we look forward to seeing you next week on
Hey, we like your pod.
Football in general comes down to discipline and people owning their roles. And when you aren't disciplined or you go outside the scheme, bad stuff happens.